The mirror in Ava Monroe's cramped Brooklyn apartment reflected a stranger. She had spent the last hour standing in front of it, adjusting the navy blue dress over and over, smoothing imaginary wrinkles, tugging the hem down slightly, and forcing her shoulders back like she had read in those articles about posture and confidence. Her reflection still didn't feel right. This was the most expensive thing she owned now, a second-hand but pristine sheath dress that hugged her curves and hinted at a woman far more confident than she felt. It cost her 2 shifts' worth of tips from the used bookstore in Williamsburg, and nearly half the money she had saved for the rest of the month. She had tried to tell herself it was worth it. Tonight was her first real date. Ever. At 21, Ava wasn't exactly inexperienced, but she'd never allowed herself to be seen. She had been too busy surviving, since the car crash that killed her parents when she was 16, since foster homes, part-time jobs and student loans. Emotions had been stuffed down into textbooks and bills, into carefully compartmentalized shelves in her mind.
En den der was Ethan Carter.
He wasn't the kind of guy who noticed girls like her. He came from Seattle money, tech, real estate, startups that sold before they launched. Confident, charming, the kind of charisma that could carry a conversation even when it had no direction. They met in a group project at NYU, and somehow, over study sessions and coffee breaks, he became the first person to look at her like she wasn't invisible. He had picked the restaurant.
The Bellagio Room.
She Googled it that night and felt the blood drain from her face. Crystal chandeliers, imported wines, a private waitlist for members. A single appetizer cost more than her monthly food budget. But Ethan had laughed off her concerns with a dismissive, "It's on me, Ava. Just come." That was how she found herself on the subway to Manhattan, clutching a small purse with exactly $28.14, her phone, and a lipstick she hadn't used in 2 years. The train rumbled through dark tunnels as Ava stared at her reflection in the window, feeling like she was playing dress-up in someone else's life. Outside the restaurant, the city sparkled in that surreal Friday night in Manhattan kind of way. Cars purred, heels clicked on marble sidewalks, and the scent of expensive cologne and ambition clung to every passerby. Inside, the Bellagio room was even more overwhelming than she imagined. Hostesses in black silk dresses. Waiters who moved with military precision. Tables lit by candles so delicate they barely flickered. "Reservation for Carter," she said, and immediately regretted it. The hostess glanced down at her tablet. Her eyes swept over Ava with professional indifference. Discount shoes.
Nervois. Drugstore foundation.
The judgment wasn't cruel, just practiced. "Right this way," the woman said. The table was beautiful, center of the room, near the fireplace, surrounded by elegance Ava had only ever seen in movies. She sat carefully, trying to appear at ease. 8 o'clock turned into 8:15. Then 8:30. She sipped water and watched other couples laughing, leaning in close, exchanging smiles and wine. Her phone remained painfully silent. No messages. No missed calls. She tried dialing Ethan, but it went straight to voicemail. Her chest tightened. Worry, confusion, embarrassment, each rising in waves. The waiter approached, his tone edged with politeness that stung. "Will you be ordering soon, ma'am? Or should I give your table to someone who will?" The words weren't cruel, but they were humiliating. Ava felt heat rush to her cheeks. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could answer, a voice, low, calm, deliberate, cut through the air behind her. "She'll be ordering.
Bring her whatever she wants."
Ava turned. The man was tall, dressed in a charcoal suit that fit like it had been tailored with blood and patience. Dark hair. Steel-gray eyes that saw too much. There was something about him, something in the way the room shifted when he entered it, like the atmosphere had to make space for him. "I wasn't," she began, but he gently placed a black American Express card on the table, ignoring her protests. "Add 20% for your attitude," he said to the waiter. "And bring her bread before she forgets what dignity tastes like."
The waiter vanished.
Quickly. "I'm sorry," Ava said, flustered, unsure if she should thank him or leave. "You don't owe me anything," the man said. "No one makes a woman cry in my city without answering for it." He sat across from her, not asking for permission. But somehow, it didn't feel like an intrusion. It felt inevitable. "Who are you?" she asked. "Damien Marcellus," he replied. "And the message you just received on your phone, that wasn't a prank." Ava blinked, suddenly remembering the notification. She pulled out her phone. There it was.
$100.
72 hours. Collateral will be collected if not resolved. It hadn't made sense before. Now it made even less. How do you?
Damien leaned forward.
Because those messages come from a very specific kind of people. And you don't look like someone who owes that kind of money. I don't, she said.
I've never borrowed anything.
You didn't, Damien said quietly. But someone used your name. And now you're in their crosshairs. She stared at him, her hands trembling just enough to be noticed. Why would anyone do that?
Damien's gaze darkened.
Because some men are cowards. And they'd rather sacrifice someone they barely know than face the consequences of their own mistakes. Ava's stomach sank. Ethan. He didn't answer. But he didn't have to. The silence between them said everything. Damien took a slow sip of wine, then looked her in the eyes. You're not safe, Ava. And if you leave here tonight thinking otherwise, you won't make it to Monday. Ava swallowed hard, but forced herself to meet his gaze. Why are you helping me? Damien's lips curled into something that almost resembled a smile.
Because the world is full of monsters.
And I've spent my whole life hunting them. But tonight, I saw one try to eat someone who didn't even know she was on the menu. And I don't allow that.
Not in my city.
For the first time that night, Ava didn't feel like the smallest person in the room. But she did feel like the most dangerous game had just begun. The next morning, Ava woke up with the uneasy feeling that everything about the previous night had been a dream. The candlelight, the humiliation, the stranger with the gray eyes who had treated her like someone worth protecting, it all felt unreal in the pale Brooklyn daylight. But when she reached for her phone, the message was still there. The same numbers stared back at her.
$cent,000.
72 hours. Collateral will be collected. Her stomach tightened. The bookstore was quiet that morning, just the low hum of the old air conditioner and the sound of someone sorting through shelves. Ava tried to focus on checking inventory, but the words on the computer screen blurred into meaningless shapes. She replayed everything Damien Marcellus had said. His tone wasn't hysterical, not even angry. It was the kind of calm that came from someone who had seen violence enough times to stop being shocked by it.
At 11 o'clock, the bell over the bookstore door rang.
A man in a tailored coat walked in, broad shoulders, dark gloves, deliberate movements. He didn't browse. He walked straight to the counter where Ava stood frozen. Miss Monroe? He asked. His accent was faint, northern clipped, the kind you only heard from people who came from old money or old power. Yes, she said slowly. He handed her a sealed envelope, cream-colored, embossed with a black symbol that looked like two interlocked circles. From Mr. Marcellus, he said. Ava hesitated before taking it. What is this? Protection, the man said simply. Then he left without another word. Inside the envelope was a business card, heavy paper, black ink, nothing else but a single address written in careful handwriting, Marcellus Group Headquarters, Lower Manhattan. And beneath it, one sentence.
If you value your life, don't ignore this.
ODM. Ava stared at the words for a long time before finally locking up the shop early. She found the building easily. It didn't have a sign, just dark glass and security men who looked more military than corporate. They didn't ask for her name. The moment she said she was expected, the doors opened. Inside, it was quiet, too quiet. The lobby smelled faintly of leather and gun oil. A woman in a navy suit led her through a corridor of glass offices until they reached a large room overlooking the East River. Damien Marcellus stood by the window, speaking into a phone. When he turned, Ava saw something in his expression she hadn't noticed the night before: fatigue. The kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from years of being the one who has to stay awake while everyone else rests. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said. I wasn't sure I should. He gestured toward the chair across from his desk. You should. She sat, still gripping the envelope in her hands. You got my message, he said. Ava nodded. You said someone used my name. How do you know that? Because I had it traced. Damien pressed a button on his desk phone, and a voice came through the intercom. Send in Marcus. The man who entered looked like the type who could break bones without breaking a sweat. He placed a file on the desk and left. Damien slid it toward her. Inside were pages of financial records, photos, and copies of messages. Ethan Carter's name was everywhere. Gambling debts, loans from offshore accounts, and finally, her name listed as collateral guarantor. Ava felt her stomach twist. He used my name? Damien nodded once. To secure a debt with the Kessler Syndicate. The name meant nothing to her, but the way he said it made her blood go cold. They're not bankers, Ava. They're a family.
All money gone rotten.
When they lend, they expect payment, with interest. And when they don't get it, they collect what they can. In your case, that would be you. She closed the file, her hands trembling. Why would he do that? I didn't even know. Because he thought it wouldn't matter, Damien interrupted, his voice low. He believed you were invisible. That you were just another poor girl who'd vanish and no one would notice. Ava stared at the floor, trying to process the betrayal. She wanted to deny it, but deep down, she knew it made perfect sense. Ethan had always been restless, desperate to impress, addicted to the rush of being admired. And she had been convenient. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now, Damien said, you let me handle it. I don't even know who you are, Ava snapped, the words spilling out before she could stop them.
You show up out of nowhere, act like you own the city, and now you're telling me you need your protection?
I don't even know if you're any better than they are. He studied her for a moment, expression unreadable. Then he walked to the bar cabinet, poured himself a glass of scotch, and said, You're right.
I'm not better.
I'm just older. And smarter. And the difference between me and them is that I don't hurt people who don't deserve it. Ava's voice softened. Why are you helping me? Damien turned back to her. Because 4 years ago, your father worked for my family. He handled books for one of our restaurants in Queens. When he died, I made sure his daughter had a scholarship to NYU. That was you. You just never knew where it came from. Ava froze. You what? Your father was a good man, Damien said simply. He kept things clean. When he died, I owed him that much. The room tilted slightly. She tried to remember the scholarship email she'd received, the anonymous foundation that covered her tuition when her student loans were about to collapse. She had never questioned it. So this is pity, she whispered. No, he said quietly. This is debt.
Mine to your fater. Etanes to the Kessler.
And now, unfortunately, yours by association. Ava stood, angry and overwhelmed. I didn't ask for this. Neither did your father. The silence that followed was heavy. Damien set his drink down. They'll come for you, Ava.
The Kessler don't care if you're innocent.
To them, you're leverage. And leverage is currency. So you can either walk out of here and pretend this isn't real, or you can let me keep you alive. She wanted to argue, to tell him she didn't need him, but every rational thought screamed that he was right. How do I know I can trust you? She asked. You don't, Damien said. But by the time you find out you can't, you'll already be dead if you pick the wrong side. Ava looked out the window.
The East River glittered beneath the pale sun, indifferent to everything happening above it. What happens if he stay?
Then you don't go anywhere alone, he said. You don't answer unknown numbers. You move into a safe house until I clean this up. After that, maybe you get your life back. Maybe.
Nothing is guaranteed in this world, Ava.
Not even survival.
She looked tense, bitter and humorless. You sound like a man who is used to losing people.
I am. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the city filled the silence between them. Finally, Ava exhaled, her decision forming before she could stop it.
Fine.
I'll stay. But not because I'm afraid. Because I want to know how deep this goes. Damien's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. Respect, maybe, or recognition. Then welcome to the Marcellus Group, he said. You've just stepped into a world that doesn't forgive curiosity. Ava met his gaze and felt the last remnants of her old life slipping away.
Somewhere in Manhattan, Ethan Carter was running out of time.
And so was she. The safe house was not what Ava expected. It wasn't a bunker or some dimly lit apartment hidden under an alias. It was a penthouse overlooking the Hudson River, marble floors, glass walls, and silence so heavy it felt like a secret itself. Damien had called it a temporary measure. His men referred to it as the nest.
Avacaled Itacage made of glass and gold.
2 weeks passed in strange stillness. She read, stared at the skyline, and tried to pretend she wasn't being watched. The guards were discreet but ever present. They brought her groceries, kept the elevator locked, and never spoke unless necessary. She saw Damien twice during that time. Once when he stopped by after midnight, tie loosened, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. He didn't say where he'd been, only that he was handling it. The second time was the morning he introduced her to Ronan Hayes. "Ronan's my right hand," Damien said. "If I'm not available, you go through him." Ronan was tall, sharp, the kind of man who looked like he'd been carved from the same material as a weapon. His smile was polite, but something about it made Ava uneasy. It didn't reach his eyes. He nodded to her. "You've caused quite a storm, Miss Monroe." Ava crossed her arms. "That wasn't my intention." "Storms rarely ask for permission," he said, still smiling. Damien shot him a look that silenced further comments. Then he turned to Ava.
"There's progress.
Ethan's been spotted. He's on the run, but we're closing in. The Kesslers won't wait long to make a move though."
You're still in danger.
Ava's stomach tightened. "And you're sure they'll come after me?" Damien didn't answer right away. They don't make empty threats. Later that night, Ava couldn't sleep. The city lights outside looked like reflections of fires in distant windows. She sat by the glass, thinking about how quickly everything had changed, from a forgotten girl working in a bookstore to a name on a hit list. She wondered if her father had ever felt something like this when he worked for men like Damien. A life spent balancing safety and morality, survival and complicity. By the third week, whispers started. The guards' behavior shifted. They spoke in half-sentences when she entered the room. One morning, she overheard 2 of them arguing outside the kitchen. "Orders came from Hayes, not Marcellus," one said.
"I don't like it."
"Since when do you question the chain of command?" the other replied. Ava's instincts prickled. Something wasn't right. When Damien finally returned that evening, she confronted him. "Your men are nervous," she said. "And Ronan's been giving orders without you."
Damien's eyes narrowed.
"What kind of orders?" "Changing schedules."
Reassigning guards. Locking certain rooms.
He frowned. "I didn't authorize that." "Then who did?" He didn't answer, but the tension in his jaw told her enough. The next morning, she found Ronan waiting for her in the study. He was leaning against the window, scrolling through something on his phone. "You're up early," he said without looking at her. "I couldn't sleep," she replied. "Understandable," he said. "It's hard to sleep when you don't know who to trust." His tone was casual, but the words landed like a blade. "What's that supposed to mean?" Ronan pocketed his phone and turned to face her.
"You think Damien's some white knight?"
"He's not. He's just another man cleaning up messes he helped create. You're useful to him, Ava, nothing more." She met his gaze steadily.
"And what are you?"
His echo. For a moment, something dangerous flickered in his expression before he smiled again. "I'm a realist. Which is more than I can say for you." That night, Ava called Damien. He didn't pick up. She tried again.
"Still nothing."
By morning, news broke inside the organization. Someone had leaked the location of one of Damien's warehouses. It was hit. 3 men were dead. Ronan arrived soon after with a grim expression. "There's suspicion about a mole," he said. "And some people think it might be you." Ava froze. "What? That's ridiculous." "Maybe," Ronan said with a shrug. "But the leak happened after you moved into the nest. You've been making calls, haven't you?"
I called Damien.
He raised a brow. "Then maybe you should ask him why he didn't answer." Hours later, Damien finally came. He looked furious. Not at her, exactly, but near her. "Did you talk to anyone outside this apartment?" he demanded. "I called you." "Besides me?"
"No."
He exhaled slowly, pacing the room. "Someone's feeding them information, and every trail leads back here." I need to know if you've told anyone where you are, even by accident. I haven't. Ava said, the frustration breaking through her fear.
You think you want to die.
Ronan entered then, silent but watchful. She's lying, he said calmly. Damien turned sharply. Enough. But Ronan continued. You think she's innocent because you want her to be. You've been blinded since the moment you saw her.
Everyone knows it. Careful, Damien warned.
Ronan took a step closer.
She's manipulating you.
Just like Ethan did. The difference is, she's smarter. Ava's heart pounded.
You're twisting this.
Ronan smiled faintly. Am I? Because the Kesslers seem to know every move we make, and it all started when you arrived. Maybe coincidence, maybe not. Damien's silence was worse than anger. He looked between them, the weight of uncertainty settling like a storm cloud. Leave us, he said finally. Ronan obeyed, but not before giving Ava one last look, a smile that said I've already won. When they were alone, Damien sank into a chair, rubbing his temples. I want to believe you, he said quietly. Then do. It's not that simple. People are dying. My men are losing faith. And if Ronan's right. He's not.
Ava's voice cracked.
You told me to trust you.
Why can't you do the same?
Damien looked up at her then, and for a moment, she saw not the man who had rescued her, but the leader who had learned to doubt everything, even himself. I can't risk the lives of 50 people on trust, he said. Until I know what's going on, you're staying here. Alone. No phone. No visitors. Her throat tightened.
You're locking me in.
I'm keeping you safe. That's what people say when they want control. Maybe, he said softly. But it's what's necessary. He left without another word. When the door clicked shut behind him, Ava sank into the couch, shaking. She wanted to cry but couldn't. The tears had stopped coming the moment she realized crying never changed anything. By nightfall, the apartment felt smaller, the walls closer. She walked through the rooms, memorizing every sound, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint buzz of city traffic below, the click of security locks engaging outside her door. Ronan's accusation replayed in her mind. He was lying, but he was smart enough to make everyone believe him. If Damien wouldn't find the truth, she would. That night, while the guards rotated shifts, Ava found the internal access panel Damien's technician had used the first week. She pried it open with a butter knife and found what she was looking for, a hardline security feed. She connected it to her laptop, navigated through layers of encrypted files, and found surveillance footage of the building's entrances. What she saw made her blood run cold. 2 nights ago, Ronan had met with someone in the underground garage. The video was grainy, but the face was unmistakable.
Ryan Kessler. The man whose family wanted her dead.
Ava sat back in her chair, trembling, not from fear, but from clarity. She wasn't the leak. She was the bait. And someone inside Damien's circle was preparing to finish what Ethan had started. Ava didn't sleep that night. The image of Ronan shaking hands with Ryan Kessler burned behind her eyes. It wasn't just betrayal, it was orchestration. The man Damien trusted most had been moving pieces behind the scenes, and she had almost been one of them. She saved the footage, backed it up in 3 locations, and wrote down every detail she could remember: dates, guard rotations, visitor logs. But what she needed wasn't just proof. It was a plan. By morning, Ava had made a decision. She couldn't sit in the penthouse and wait to be sacrificed again. She showered, dressed in all black, tied her hair back, and sat by the window with a cup of untouched coffee. When the guards brought her breakfast, she smiled, calm as ever. She asked for a few books and a notepad, claiming boredom. They bought it. That afternoon, she requested a meeting with Damien. The guards relayed the message, but no reply came. She didn't expect one. Instead, Ava sent a different message, encrypted, anonymous, from a burner laptop she had hidden beneath a vent panel. It was short, direct, and calculated to reach the right people. Urgent intelligence on internal compromise. Meet at 9 p.m. Confidential.
Location, Marcelu Group Boardroom, level 8.
Witnesses required.
Trust is dead.
Proof lives. She signed it simply.
A name you once protected.
That evening she dressed again, this time in a blazer Damien had left in the closet, tailored slightly too large, but enough to lend her the presence she needed. Beneath it, she strapped a small pistol she'd found in one of the locked drawers. She had trained at the range once, barely. But this wasn't about precision. It was about control. At 8:45 p.m., Ava entered the Marcellus headquarters for the first time since Damien had confined her to the nest. No one stopped her.
The garde the Fronguève a hésité en eau.
Something in her expression must have silenced the usual protocols. When she stepped into the boardroom, it was already occupied. Damien sat at the head of the long glass table, arms crossed, expression unreadable. On his left, 4 of his most senior lieutenants, men and women Ava recognized from photos and whispers. On his right sat Ronan Hayes, leaning back casually, twirling a pen between his fingers. Ava paused in the doorway. The silence in the room was electric. "You called this meeting," Damien said.
Let's hear what you have.
She walked to the center of the room, each step deliberate. "I've been accused of being the leak. Of betraying the Marcellus group. Of working with the Kesslers."
Murmure stirred.
Damien raised a hand to silence them. "I've been watched, isolated, and nearly discarded without a trial," Ava continued. "And for a while, I thought maybe that was just how your world worked. No justice.
Juste instinct."
She placed a small USB drive on the table. "But I was raised to believe that if you're going to be accused of something, you might as well find out who really did it." Damien nodded toward one of his tech aides. The man took the drive, plugged it into the system, and projected the footage onto the screen behind them. The grainy image filled the room, Ronan stepping into the garage, speaking to a hooded man, then shaking hands. The hood slipped back just enough for the face to be seen.
Ryan Kessler.
Gasps echoed. Ronan stood, slow and measured. "This is ridiculous," he said.
Staged.
"Doctored. You really think I'd meet with the Kesslers?" "The footage is time-stamped," Ava replied.
2 days before the warehouse hit.
"You changed security patrols that night. You pulled 2 guards off duty for disciplinary reasons." Damien's face remained carved in stone. "Is it true?" Ronan turned to him. "You're going to believe her over me?" "She has evidence. She has edited footage and a vendetta. She has motive to stay alive," Ava said. "That's all. Meanwhile, you've got every reason to want me gone. I threaten your position." I pulled Damien's attention. "You saw me as a problem before I even knew what game I was in." The room went still. Ronan's eyes darted to the tech, then to the guards at the door.
A flicker of panic.
That was all it took. He moved fast, too fast. In one fluid motion, he flipped the chair between them, drawing a knife from his jacket, lunging toward Ava. She had expected it. She didn't hesitate. Her hand moved to her side, pulled the pistol free, and fired once.
The crack of the gunshot ran through the boardroom like thunder.
Ronan collapsed, blood pooling beneath him. Ava didn't move. Didn't blink. The silence that followed was suffocating. Damien rose slowly, his expression unreadable. He walked to where Ronan lay, knelt beside him, checked his pulse. Nothing. He stood again and looked at Ava.
"You came armed."
"I knew he would. You killed him. He was going to kill me." One of the lieutenants stood. "He met with Ryan Kessler. This proves everything."
Damien reste à Andagen. Sit.
He looked back at Ava. "You planned this?" She nodded. "I had to. Because no one else was going to believe me until he made his move." Damien studied her for a long moment, then said, "You took a risk. If he hadn't attacked." "Then I'd be dead by morning," she interrupted. "Or accused again. Either way, I was already standing on the edge." A pause. Then Damien turned to the room. "Let it be known, Ronan Hayes betrayed this family. He aligned with the Kesslers, compromised our operations, and endangered our people. Ava Monroe exposed him, at great risk to herself. As of now, she answers directly to me." Murmurs swept the room again, this time tinged with a new undercurrent, respect. Or fear. Ava sat, finally, as Damien dismissed the rest. One by one, the lieutenants filed out, the door closing behind them. Damien remained standing, his eyes still on her. You shouldn't have had to do that. No, she said. But I did. And I would again. He exhaled slowly, walked to the bar, and poured a drink. He handed it to her without a word. She took it, hand steady. What happens now? She asked. Damien looked out the window at the lights of the city. Now, he said, they know what you're capable of. Ava finished the drink in a single motion. They have no idea. The girl who once stood in a dress too expensive for her life had disappeared. In her place sat a woman who had just killed to survive, and uncovered a betrayal at the heart of a criminal empire. And somewhere in the city, the Kesslers would be preparing their next move. Only now, they weren't just up against Damien Marcellus. They were up against Ava Monroe. Ava Monroe didn't sleep after the night she shot Ronan Hayes.
There was no sense of triumph, no adrenaline rush, no cinematic moment of relief.
Only silence.
Heavy, thick, and absolute.
It followed her from the boardroom to the elevator, up into the office Damien had once told her was untouchable. Now, it was hers. Officially, she wasn't the head of anything. Damien remained the face of the Marcellus group. But no one made a move without consulting her. The same lieutenants who had once whispered about her presence now watched her with something that hovered between fear and reverence. The morning after Ronan's death, she was given access to every file, every operational briefing, every layer of the organization Damien had spent 2 decades building. She read through names, assets, vulnerabilities, and one name kept surfacing, Ryan Kessler. He had disappeared the same night Ronan was exposed. Intelligence suggested he had gone underground, leaving a trail of encrypted messages and fragmented alliances in his wake. But Ava knew better. He wasn't hiding. He was reloading. Are you sure you're ready for this? Damien asked her, 2 days later. They were alone in his office, the city stretching out behind him. Ava didn't hesitate. He's coming. We can either wait for the hit, or we take the fight to him.
Damien se dit d'heure. You've changed.
No, she said. I just stopped pretending I didn't see the world for what it is. Damien nodded slowly, then handed her a sealed envelope. Inside was a name, Charlotte Vance. A data analyst.
Late 20s.
Clean record. She's the leak's new contact, he said. Our surveillance caught her pulling server data from a holding account. She's connected to the Kesslers. Ava stared at the photo. Get her in. Quietly. That afternoon, Charlotte Vance was brought into a secure conference room beneath the Marcellus headquarters. Ava walked in alone. Charlotte was calm, almost curious.
You must be the girl who made it out alive.
I'm the girl who stops others from dying because men like you think we're disposable, Ava replied coldly.
Charlotte tilted her head.
Is that what you think I am? Another pawn. I think you made a choice, Ava said.
And now I'm offering you one more. What kind of choice?
Help us dismantle Ryan Kessler's network from the inside, Ava said. Or you'll be the last person who ever tries to rebuild it. Charlotte smiled. That's a very polished threat. It's not a threat, Ava said. It's a promise. And I don't break those. Silence stretched. Charlotte finally leaned back in her chair. You're not like him.
Damien?
Ava asked. No. Ryan. He always underestimated women. That'll be his mistake this time. By the end of the week, Charlotte was feeding Ava real-time data on Kessler's movements.
Offshore account.
Hidden properties. Allies posing as neutral parties. Ava didn't just respond. She rewrote the rules. For every account Kessler opened, she froze 2. For every message he sent, she intercepted 3. For every threat, she sent a silent one back, with names, addresses, and untraceable precision. She became legend before the city even realized who she was. The media caught wind of a shake-up in the underworld, whispers of a woman inside the Marcellus group, someone who didn't flinch, didn't beg, didn't bluff. They didn't have a name. Not yet. But people began calling her something else, the Phantom Queen. By the time Ryan resurfaced, he was already losing. He sent a single message to Damien.
You've let a weapon live too long.
Sooner or later, she turns on you. Ava read it over Damien's shoulder.
She said nothing.
But her silence spoke louder than bullets. That night, Damien walked into the rooftop garden where Ava stood alone, city lights flickering below. "You've made enemies," he said. "I was born into them," she replied. "I just didn't know their names." He stepped closer. "I've seen leaders rise and fall, Ava. They usually fall because they start to believe they can't." "Then I'll keep one foot on the ground," she said. Damien nodded.
You veux change d'everything.
She looked out at the skyline. "No. I've just made it obvious who was really pulling the strings all along." He hesitated before speaking again. "What if I said it's time for you to step out of the shadows? To lead for real?" Ava turned to face him.
You dey give it up.
"I built this to last. If it means giving it to someone who can take it further, yes." She was silent for a moment, then said, "Not yet."
Let them whisper my name first.
"That's more powerful than any title." And so it began.
Kessler's empire crumbled from within.
One of his major ports was seized by a shipping union secretly loyal to Ava. A tech company funding his surveillance was exposed in a federal investigation. Two of his most trusted allies switched sides, after Ava offered them exactly what Kessler never could, a future.
The final strike came 6 weeks later.
Charlotte decrypted a chain of messages that led them to an abandoned estate outside Albany. It was supposed to be Ryan Kessler's fallback base. Ava organized the takedown herself. No bloodbath. No theatrics.
Juste précision.
When it was over, Kessler was gone.
No one found a body.
No message. Just a scorched room, a burned ledger, and a symbol carved into the concrete, 2 interlocked circles. A warning, or a farewell. Either way, Ava didn't care. She had already moved on.
Back in Manhattan, the Marcelu Group operated like a well-oiled machine.
Damien remained the name on the door. But it was Ava who controlled the room. She didn't issue orders with threats. She gave them with clarity. She didn't demand loyalty. She earned it. She didn't seek fear. She inspired something much more dangerous, belief. One evening, alone in the penthouse, Ava walked to the large window overlooking the skyline. Her reflection shimmered against the glass. She placed a hand over her stomach. She hadn't told Damien yet. Not because she was afraid, but because she wasn't ready for the world to know what was coming next. A future. Built not just for survival, but for transformation. She whispered to herself, barely audible above the hum of the city, "The world tried to erase me." Her reflection looked back, steady, calm, unstoppable.
Now you write the rule.
And this time, they would carry her name.
Ava Monroe. Doctor of no one. Queen of everything.
The girl who was left behind, now leading an empire no one saw coming.